are that if you can allow Adam to go through his presentation. However, if you have any questions, you're welcome to write it down in the chat so we don't have the least amount of interruptions, and I'll pause from time to time to talk to Adam to provide your questions to him. And we will take a quick break, I think around 30-40 minutes from now, and we'll have interactive sessions. And then after that, very small presentation, which is going to be more interactive as well. With that, I'm going to ask Adam to please introduce yourself and begin your presentation, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kaleem. My name is Adam Nowicki. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. If you can hear me, I'm going to assume that everyone else can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, my name is Adam Nowicki. I am a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed addictions counselor, both in the state of Colorado. I understand that most of you are pretty much, I think all of you are in Houston right now. So I hope things are going well there. Today I'm going to be presenting on coping with unemployment during COVID, and really focusing on how we can kind of how to feel, how to think, and kind of how we can act. So hopefully we can kind of address this. My hope is that this is kind of informational, that it's fun. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box, or you can kind of jump in and we'll answer them that way. A little bit about me. Actually, before we get there, here's kind of the agenda I had for today. So I believe it's an hour difference between where you guys are and where I am. So here's kind of our outline. We'll do the presentation for about 40 minutes, 40 minutes. Then we'll take a bit of a break. I'm a big proponent of getting up and kind of stretching your legs, being able to do that. And then we'll do a little activity. So during that, I'm going to ask that you all turn your microphones and videos on for the activity so that we can really kind of talk in this manner. So it might be a little different than maybe what you're used to. And then we'll kind of wrap up. So that's kind of what I envision, but I'm also understand that we need to be flexible. So if this doesn't quite work out that way, that's quite all right. So a little bit about me. Again, I'm a licensed clinical social worker and a licensed addictions counselor. I'm the owner of Level Up Counseling and Consulting. I started my private practice about 2 years ago. And before that time, I've been working in community mental health and other mental health centers, both in Arizona and in Colorado. I moved to Colorado in 2011 because I enjoyed backpacking, hiking, things like that. And then got on with community mental health. And like I said, about 2 years ago, started my own business. So I specialize in working with teens, adults, and families who might be struggling with mental health or substance abuse issues. And I primarily operate out of the North Denver area, Metro North kind of Denver area. If you'd like more information, you could check out my website. You could just Google Level Up Counseling. If you need to reach me, I'll have my contact information that you can go ahead and reach me that way. I'm pretty accessible, so if you have any questions, any follow-up to this, please feel free to reach out and talk to me, okay? All right, so the first thing to recognize or to understand, and I'm not really sure kind of your all stories, I would be curious to kind of know more about it, and I do hope that we have an opportunity so that I can get some of your all's input, but understanding that right now we're in a crisis. Really what started as a kind of health crisis, a health catastrophe, has blown up into a catastrophe, and that has affected other areas, namely the job market, the economy. I understand that many of you are without a job or have lost your jobs. Like millions of people, there's been millions of jobs lost since kind of the start of this in March, April. During this time, the concern the biggest concern as a mental health professional is stress. Right? We're all under a great deal of stress. And the initial crisis really generates a lot of stress on individuals, families, and communities. According to the National Institutes of Mental Health and the Centers for Disease Control, stress during an infectious disease outbreak can include fear and worry about your health, changes in eating or sleeping, difficulty sleeping, worsening of chronic health problems. Furthermore, by now I think we've kind of all realized this, but after looking at several studies, they found that, surprise, surprise, being subjected to quarantine is not good for people's mental health. And that the psychological effects of quarantine and the distress are associated with negative psychological effects that may last for months or years. So it's important to know kind of where we're at. And that this is a very challenging time, and that we are still very much in it, and that we ought to kind of accept that we're in this crisis. And hopefully, I'm a firm believer that kind of the first part of that is the acceptance piece, and that we kind of accept that that's kind of where we start. Then we can start to do something about it. The good news is that many of us, most of us, will make it through with little to no problems. There will be a small group of our society that this really affects and has a great deal of impact, but many of us, this will be something that we kind of weave into our lives, and hopefully kind of look back on it and are able to tell stories to our kids and our grandkids about it. So this topic presents a unique opportunity here to talk about kind of the multiple stressors of COVID-19 and dealing with job loss. And you'll start to see some overlap here. So with COVID-19, some of the stressors include increased loneliness or isolation, fear or worry about your health and the health of loved ones, changes in sleep or eating patterns, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, worsening of chronic health conditions, worsening of mental health conditions, and increased risk of nicotine or tobacco and alcohol and other drugs. So these are some of the stressors that just being part of what is going on right now, facing kind of COVID-19 and the effects, these are kind of some of the effects that it can have on mental health. So you combine that with job loss, and you kind of have, I think, what you guys termed it before, this kind of double black swan. So with job loss, there's often the fear or worry about financial situation and future outcomes, feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, and some of that I'd like to address today. Increased what they call somatic symptoms. So these are kind of body symptoms or sensations that include headache, fatigue, changes in sleeping or eating, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, worsening of chronic health conditions, mental health conditions, increased risk of nicotine, tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs. So this, again, you can see the overlap there. If you just took away one of these, one of these categories here, that would be enough to deal with. But the fact that you have kind of both of these things going on makes it that much more challenging. And again, just remembering kind of, hey, we're in this crisis zone. We're kind of back at how do we take care of ourselves? So specifically with COVID-19, some of the mental health concerns include depression or other mood disorders. So when we talk, you may hear people say increased risk for depression, anxiety, things like that. So this is where we really look at it and say, okay, for those, not only those that have developed COVID-19, but maybe their family members and even other members of the community who maybe didn't develop COVID-19. But certainly increases in depression, anxiety, and other anxiety-related disorders. What's known as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, and other stress-related disorders. Grief and loss issues. And really this idea, I've become intrigued by this idea that, excuse me, that we're all kind of going through this collective grief. As a therapist, it's particularly interesting and heartbreaking that I'm going through the same exact thing that a lot of my clients are. So, which is oftentimes that may not be the case, but, there's a lot of kind of back and forth as far as the feelings. They may be talking about something they saw on TV or concerns around the spread of COVID-19. And, I may be feeling those same things. And and as we go on, I'll talk a little more about my own feelings as well. Relationship issues. So this is where we start to see issues between couples, issues between families, issues between extended families. Certainly if you've participated in any events, and as you see on Facebook, people have different ideas about how they handle this, how they're kind of dealing with it. Some people really aren't and kind of are in this denial stage. And some people are really kind of in this stage of, well, I really need to treat this very seriously and do what I can. We also see particularly concerning might be incidents of child abuse going up. And I think we might see that as schools start to reopen too, because that's primarily schools are the ones that kind of catch the incidents of child abuse that occur during the summer. Parenting and child care concerns. Certainly, if any of you have any children, the last few months from March, April, May, some of June was particularly challenging because kids were out of school or kids were in school and the schools were transitioning to this online format. Then kids got out of school, you had to figure out maybe what to do with them, how to keep them entertained. And now we're looking at potentially having them go back to school. And what will that mean? What will that look like? Suicide and self-harm. These are certainly concerns. It's understandable that someone under a great deal of stress may start to entertain ideas or things to relieve that stress. And this is where it gets particularly concerning, where people may think about wanting to harm themselves or even kill themselves. So that's a concern. And then substance use disorders. This includes alcohol, cannabis, on and on and on from there. And then particular interest of mine as well is dealing kind of with these existential or these kind of life meaning issues. What will this mean for my life? Some of you who have lost jobs because of this may transition to new fields. You may have kind of had a path set out for you, and then this happened, and now the path is going that way. So what does that mean for your life? What does that mean for the life of your family? So these are all some of the issues that me as a mental health professional would kind of work with a person, organization around kind of how do we address and really, kind of what do we do to make sure that people are really taking care of themselves. And part of this presentation is really about a lot of that. So we're going to get right into it. So the first thing is that feel piece, right? So this has to deal with feelings and emotions. And I wouldn't be a very good therapist if I didn't ask you to acknowledge your emotional reactions and explore your feelings. And we'll have an opportunity to do some of this in the next little presentation after we come back from break. I'll really ask you to kind of dive in and identify some of those. So we have emotional reactions to all things, kind of all things that happen to us, good and bad. This situation is no different. And we should be allowed and allow others to feel however they do. However they may be feeling, we should be supportive of that and try and do what we can to let them know that, hey, we're there, we care, we're listening, and we want to help. So kind of what is the role of feelings? So feelings kind of motivate us to take action, help us survive, thrive, and avoid danger, enhance decision-making, and help us understand others and them to understand us. Again, some of this may seem very basic. Kind of, if any of you have children, you may kind of get to see how these feelings and emotions develop. So I'm really going to talk about kind of these core emotions that you'll see in bold, but really these kind of smaller emotions as part of it. So common emotional reactions might be mad. And this can include, again, feeling angry, frustrated, irritated, and on and on and on. Sadness, maybe feeling ashamed, inferior, um, bored, certain things like that. Scared, certainly if there is a disease out there, and this is, I think, where a lot of people come from, is that before February, I didn't know about coronaviruses. I didn't really know that the common cold was a coronavirus. So, finding out that there's this kind of deadly pandemic that kind of hit certainly generates a lot of feeling scared, feeling helpless, feeling overwhelmed. So we can kind of lump those feelings into that scared factor. Joyful, and maybe it's been a while since you felt joyful. Certainly, again, being in this kind of crisis, this place of crisis, it's really hard to feel kind of joyful. It's hard to feel joyful or optimistic. So we may not be in that place, and that's okay. Powerful. So this includes feeling proud, appreciated, confident, things like that. And peaceful. And this may include content, loving, trusting, nurturing. So really, I want to kind of group us into these 6 categories of mad, sad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful. So that's kind of where we're going to operate from, those kind of core feelings. Certainly, if you can identify other feelings, that may come up in these categories, I encourage you to really speak to that. But this is kind of where I start in therapy, is really having people get clear about kind of what are their feelings and emotions around a particular event, or kind of something that's going on in their life. The next piece is the thoughts and cognition. So this is we had the feel piece, now we have the think piece. So our thoughts help us to perceive the world around us and form impressions about the world and other people, and then also fill in gaps and enhance functioning. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means. So really where I wanted to kind of come at this from is, how can we kind of be proactive and not just positive in our thoughts, but maybe optimistic. So the first piece is to stay healthy. This includes eating a diet that's rich in healthy nutrients and vitamins, healthy proteins, fats, carbohydrates, a balanced diet. If you're like me, the last 3 months have been somewhat challenging in that. I have maybe gained about 10 pounds. It's certainly gotten better from where it was back in March, April, where I would, I think I had a diet that included, an average of 2 ice cream sandwiches a day. So I've cut out the ice cream sandwiches now and am on to healthier things. But that's kind of where I was at that point. Thinking critically and challenging some of your assumptions. And this is where we get into what psychologists and therapists may call cognitive distortions and thinking errors. And I'll just highlight a couple. So we have what's called all or nothing, or black and white thinking. So things are either all good or all bad. And that we may have, when we kind of get into these spots, we have trouble kind of knowing that there's this kind of middle ground, that there's this gray. Catastrophizing, if you're like me, this is a trap that I fall into. So we kind of give greater weight to the worst possible outcome. So for some of you that have lost jobs, saying, I will never find a job again and I'm going to end up homeless. That might be an example of catastrophizing. Full disclosure, I launched my business full-time. I left my job at the end of March and launched my business full-time April 1st. So there was a lot of fear and kind of worry there about, oh my God, I'm never going to do this. Here's this pandemic. I can't do this. This is going to change everything. I'm going to go out of business and end up homeless. So certainly if I'm not careful, I can give into some of that catastrophizing. And then another one is kind of that I think is particularly relevant right now is what's called the fallacy of fairness, and I am susceptible to this one as well, that I believe life should be fair. Why is this happening to me? Look at so-and-so, they still have a job, they're still doing fine. Why has this happened to me? So understanding that, life isn't fair, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do outside of that. during this time, I think it is important to stay curious and continue learning. This is how we can, again, hopefully work on improving, our thoughts and cognition, is continue to learn about things, stay interested. You know, one thing for me as a therapist, I'm really interested in new types of therapy, what will help people get better quicker. So, the good news is there's tons of information and ways to connect. The last thing is avoid multitasking. So there's been research done that shows that humans, despite our best efforts, are not very good at multitasking. So this is where I think it's important to kind of cultivate habits of being mindful of our surroundings, mindful of activities, really dedicating our attention to kind of what we're doing in the task at hand, and focusing. That oftentimes means taking your phone and putting it somewhere. I have mine right next to me, which is probably not a good idea. I should probably put it in a drawer or something when I'm, kind of doing a task that is important and I don't want to get distracted from. So for you, this might include, putting your phone away, doing what you can to kind of minimize distractions in the environment, turning off bells, whistles, chimes, things like that on your computer, and anything like that. Kaleem, how am I doing? Am I going too fast here?
No, I think you're doing fine. Thank you.
All right. So the next piece, and kind of the last piece of the feel, think, act, is taking action. Taking action and staying motivated. It's challenging, and I think it's become a lot more challenging since we've all been stuck at home, to feel motivated. To feel like you're kind of taking action. It can be hard to take action and be motivated if you're feeling depressed, or if you're feeling anxious, or if you're feeling helpless and hopeless about a job loss. So the question is, what can I do to kind of generate some momentum here and kind of get going? So I wanted to talk a little bit about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic, or kind of internal motivation, is where you kind of perform a behavior or engage in an activity because it is personally rewarding. So, and I use the example of running here. I used to like running. I wouldn't say I loved it, but then I kind of got away from it. But for me, intrinsic motivation might be playing guitar or playing music. It's something I find personally rewarding. So it's important that I build that into my day. I build that into my lifestyle. I like playing video games. So it's important that I make time for those things, in addition to all the other activities. And then we have some of the kind of outside or extrinsic or external forces. This is where we kind of perform a behavior or engage in activity to earn a reward or avoid some sort of punishment. And again, I use the example of running, where I hate running, but I don't want to gain weight. Therefore, I kind of engage in this behavior, and that the kind of extrinsic motivator of gaining weight is what allows me to, it was what kind of motivates me to run. I just admitted a new person into the room because I saw that popped up. Yanti? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank
Great.
you.
Yes, absolutely. The next thing to know is that motivation looks different during times of crisis. Certainly being in the space we're in right now is incredibly challenging. Motivation looks different when we're sick, when we're well, when we're feeling defeated, when we're optimistic. So this is where things like discipline and habits kind of come in. But understanding first and foremost that motivation looks different during a time of crisis. So previously, I was a pretty big practitioner of jiu-jitsu. So for the last couple of years, I was practicing 3 or 4 days a week, really monitoring my diet. And then COVID hit. March 11th was the last day I did jiu-jitsu. And it's probably been I think that's about 5 months now. So, and after that, my motivation really took a nosedive. Now I'm lucky I'm lucky that I have a dog and I have animals, so I get out and take him for a walk. My wife and I go for walks. I do a smaller workout, have been trying to eat better, but my motivation looks very different now. And just accepting that and kind of being kind to myself. The next piece is that motivation is equal to momentum. So this is the idea that when you kind of get started, that's what makes motivation, it kind of builds upon itself. And oftentimes it's just the act of getting started that is really that first step. I think I find it frustrating as a therapist is that people say, you know, I'm going to wait till I feel better to start something or to pursue something. Anyone that has done any sort of hobby, activity, things like that, there will be days you don't want to do it. And this was particularly apparent in when I did jujitsu. There are days I did not want to go. And that is the important days. Those are the days when you need to go. There will be days you don't want to go run or you don't want to exercise. And those are the days that you should kind of lean into and say, you know what, this is important. This is something I like to do. Hopefully, it's that kind of intrinsic motivation. And again, that momentum kind of builds on itself. It's easy to kind of fall out of it, and it can be somewhat challenging to kind of maintain. So I want to encourage all of you, if you feel like you're kind of in a rut right now, is to start small. And we'll talk a little more about this in kind of our discussion period, that you can all start small and kind of build up from there. It doesn't have to be, I'm going to run a marathon, but maybe I can, walk around the block as a start. Okay, the next piece is what I wanted to talk about, and this is kind of the goal that we're striving for. Or as mental health professionals, we find that, how is it that people are able to kind of deal with crisis? How are people able to deal with traumatic events? What makes these people special that they're able to do this? And out of this came work around what's called resilience. And the APA defines resilience as the process, the APA meaning the American Psychiatric Association, or American Psychological Association, excuse me, define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as family and relationships problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. As much as resilience involves bouncing back from these difficult experiences, it can also involve profound personal growth. So this terrible, catastrophic thing has happened to us. It has happened to you, it has happened to me. What can I do to enhance my coping and hopefully develop resilience in the face of this? And I've become more intrigued recently. There's been some research done around the idea of post-traumatic growth and, some of the good things that may come out of a terrible situation. So psychologists who looked at kind of building resilience found several things where you can kind of focus in order to build resilience. The first one is to build connections. And I think that's a big part of why we're here today. And if you participated in any other Zoom groups, it's about maintaining those connections. This includes prioritizing healthy relationships, so those that are trustworthy, compassionate, empathetic, and understanding, and also encourages you to get connected socially. While we are physically distanced from one another right now, we can be socially connected. And I think we're all maybe experiencing some level of kind of Zoom burnout or something along those lines. But, I think we look forward to the days where we can kind of be more socially connected. The next piece is fostering wellness. So this is kind of wellness, overall kind of wellness. This includes taking care of your body, getting exercise, diet, eating right, getting sleep. practicing things like mindfulness, you know, any other kind of activities, yoga, meditation, things like that, that just kind of foster a sense of wellness. If you're religious, you know, prayer, attending church, things like that. And then also avoiding negative outlets, or those things that might kind of take away from your wellness. So, you know, things like substances, you know, certainly we see people drinking and using substances more. And that can take away from that sense of wellness and really, really decrease the chances of kind of building this kind of resilience. The next piece is finding purpose. I think we as humans strive, one of the things that makes us unique is that we look for purpose in life. We look for meaning. So this purpose might be helping others. It might be being proactive about doing something. Maybe now is the opportunity for kind of you to get involved. The purpose, kind of developing your goals in accordance with your beliefs and kind of moving towards those goals. I think this is an opportunity for self-discovery. What are some things that I enjoy? Did I enjoy what I was doing before? What are the things I liked about what I was doing before? What are the things I didn't like? What would I like about my next kind of endeavor? What might be some things I would like and hope to kind of build upon? Embrace healthy thoughts. And this kind of goes back to that cognition piece, trying to keep things in perspective. Right now, there is so much that is outside of our control, and it can feel overwhelming. So really just allowing ourselves to kind of keep it in perspective and say, I recognize that I'm just kind of this small fish, but that I can have an impact too. Accept that things change. If there's one constant, it's change. Maintain a hopeful or optimistic outlook. I think we get to choose our outlook. And certainly it can be informed by the world, but we do get to choose, I believe. So I encourage you to choose an optimistic outlook. Learn from those things in your past that maybe weren't so great, and how you can kind of rectify and build upon some of the struggle that you had in your past. And the last piece is seek help when necessary. This might include attending, you know, reaching out to friends, reaching out to family, any sort of community or church activities, or, you know, reach to more professional supports, primary care physicians, therapists, things like that, recovery groups. So that basically concludes the kind of first part that I had lined up. And again, my name's Adam. Here's my contact information. If you need to or would like to send me an email or give me a call, that's available to you there. Kaleem, did you kind of want to jump in?
Yeah, so definitely we like to, do you guys like to take a quick break now, or you want to continue? Give us a little bit of feedback.
Break would be good.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
I think, good, we can continue on, see?
Okay, great. So were there any questions or anything like that?
Yeah, I think that there are, somebody says a break, please. So let's go and take a look at, I'm eating lunch too. That's fine. Yeah, go ahead and take a 5-minute break. How is that?
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you. That will
Thank
allow
you.
us a little bit of stretching the arms and getting ready, get some drink of water.
And I'm actually going to step away from my computer here.
Surely, no problem. Thank you.
Spar's core ingredients are all there for a reason.
All right, Adam, we are back. It's 2:45.
All right. Did everybody have a chance to grab a beverage or take a potty break? Hopefully they did. Okay, were there any questions while I was out?
No questions on the chat
Okay.
line. So.
All right. So now what I'm going to ask everyone to do is, if you can, please turn on your video.
And audio as well.
All right, there's some smiling faces. It's nice to see actual humans behind the black boxes there. We'll see who's actually kind of paying attention. Amy, I like your tattoos.
We can hear you. You're muted, Amy. Amy, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's okay to go and open up your mic in case if you have a question, you want to comment. I think the group is rather smaller, so we can manage it. It usually becomes an issue in a larger group. So.
Okay. Yeah, if you can, go ahead and you can unmute yourself and kind of turn on your computer, your screen there, so that we can see you.
Yeah.
It looks like Yanti is having a couple.
Yes.
But you guys can hear me, right?
Yes, we can.
Yeah,
Yes.
sounds good. Yeah.
So let's open up the floor for your comments up to so far what you saw and Adam presented. Any comments, any thoughts about it? Please go ahead. Helen, you want to
You know,
say
I mean, it's a very tough time, right? There's so many unknown situations around us. You know, I've gone through a few interviews, and I'm having one tomorrow afternoon. It's, you know, it all comes down to your attitude. You have to stay positive, you have to stay calm, and you have to stay focused. One thing that I did was, I played classical guitar and classical piano growing up in teenage years, and in college days and started the career, I forgot how to play those music. And what I have done, I started picking up classical guitar again, and I started playing, and it's unbelievable how much I forgot. And it took me, I would say, maybe 2 weeks, and I can start playing one of the pieces. I mean,
Amazing.
the easiest piece, right? But now I'm into it, and I have something else other than looking for a job to focus on. There's so
Right.
many positive things in life, and there's so many more that are negative. You just have to focus on the positive and continue to be resilient
Right.
moving forward.
Right.
Excellent example, Yanti, and I appreciate that very much. So as some of you know that I also coach and consult with Lee Hecht Harrison, and some of you may have been a candidate there as well. I can tell you from my experience that sometimes the interviews go to the second or third level or fourth level and nothing comes out of it, right? And they inform you that they have selected some other candidate. And it can be a pretty big drop right there. But guess what happened? So I had a candidate this morning that I can share with you without naming names, that this person was really hoping to get that job. It was almost there, and they selected another candidate. But within a neighboring state, she applied with one of the big companies, in fact, in aerospace. She was a oil and gas person, but she applied in aerospace, and she got the job offer from that company after one interview. It's how does it work? You just don't know. So I absolutely echo the sentiments that Yanti shared. May I share, Adam?
Yeah.
A quick thing. I think I always say that in my message to my candidate, align with nature. Nature has a way. Every morning and every evening we see that, right? Every morning sun comes up, every evening sun goes down. Nature doesn't move. And I think if we align more with nature, that nature, God has something for us that we can't see far enough. I see these examples day in, day in, day out in my consulting and coaching. So think about that for a minute, right? And it just happens. I can tell you within the last 10 days, 4 people have landed positions. 4 people.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this person, I was talking to you about that, the other person in another areas, and they're also thankful for being there. It's amazing process. Everybody's process is very different.
Right. Right.
So I encourage you to think about that. And I love, think about something. So this one person, he's good carpenter, and that's what he started doing, is like making cabinets and refining. So one person shared his experiences. Kaleem, I am never ever going to get an opportunity like this to be home with my kids. Yes, it is not very comfortable, but you know what he did? He actually took with his son and daughter, and wife is working obviously, so they start painting the house. And what a way to bond with the children, right, at this time. And they're teenagers. So you can imagine that he's not going to have this time like this. And so that's how he's spending time and utilizing time wisely.
Right. And it occurred to me, I work with a lot of teens and youths, that for a lot of them, this is really kind of their first big crisis. So for me, I have, kind of growing up, I'm a child of kind of the 90s. So, I can remember Columbine, 9/11, things like that. But for a lot of them, this is that first big thing. So, for kids and young kids, really taking it as a time to, again, connect and do some of those things as families. And, this is an opportunity, I think, to do some of those things that might not otherwise be done.
So, Adam, something I'd like to share with you too, that, there is always something good in something bad. And let me share this example with you. Anybody from LA here? Anybody has gone visited LA?
Yep.
Think about that, right?
Visited.
Pollution. China, pollution. India, you can see the gateway in Delhi, right? And so pollution. Guess what? Because of COVID, transportation is not going anywhere. Airlines are not going anywhere. So they're able to enjoy the fresh air. So, in some countries, I think that the health is going to get a little bit better. I know the COVID is there, but in general, when you think about people with asthma and so on and so forth like that, because of the lack of pollution.
Right.
We don't give credit to the nature for those kind of things, right? That the air is getting better, the quality of the air is getting better, but at the same time, we always have to blame what we are going through. And so, if you are balanced enough, like you were talking about, the immediate action is to blame it, be unfair.
Right. Okay, so now I'm gonna, if there are no other questions, I'm gonna kind of get into our next section. And those that haven't turned their video or their audio on, I guess we'll give you a pass. You're lucky. But if you can, I certainly encourage you to turn it on. That way you can kind of participate, because I would like to hear from everyone, because I think the most interesting thing for me as a therapist is getting to hear other people's stories, and kind of how people navigate through life, and how, because it can be challenging sometimes. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. So let's see if I can do this successfully. All right, do you all see that? Just nod your heads if you can.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, so again, we're going to kind of approach it from the feel, think, act kind of perspective. So the first piece that we're going to address is the feeling. So I want you to think real quick, maybe identify kind of what's a predominant feeling or emotion that you've had since this kind of crisis started.
So Adam, it could be two-way, the crisis meaning COVID or losing the job.
Right. Yeah. So kind of however you want to approach it, kind of So, and I'll kind of start so that I can share a little bit. I think one thing that I have noticed is that I'm angry. I'm angry at kind of the federal response. I get angry at people. I found that I'd be angry kind of at Facebook and certain groups on that, but certainly recognizing that that exists, and that you know, that has been, as much as kind of other emotions, that anger has been there. Would someone else like to share?
Hi, Adam. I'm Angelina, and I agree with you. I also feel angry, but I also feel fear and very afraid of the inability of the government um, to to trust the government, you know. So you end up, because you know, like since the beginning you could see saying no masks, and then you know, like it was obvious that you need to wear masks. For me, you know, because I travel, you know, like I travel a lot, and I see, you know, like I've been in China, I've been in Japan, everybody wears masks, and all of a sudden they say there is this virus, and they say no masks. So and then everything starts growing so bad, you know, like, and people dying all over. And now, you know, we have, besides that COVID, we have a possible, you know, war. A possible war is coming, you know, like today in Houston, there was the consulate has been whatever happened, you know, and nobody knows exactly what's going on. So fear, anger, you know, like there is a mixture of feelings and total inability. We cannot do anything. We can't. What we can do, you know, what we can do.
So you're talking about three things: helplessness,
about many
fear,
things.
and angry, right? I think, yeah, those are the underlying things. Yeah, thank you. That was great. Appreciate it.
Right. And it can be challenging because we have these kind of mixed emotions, right? One moment I'm afraid, the next moment I'm angry, you know, maybe I'm joyful at one moment, but that it kind of changes. And you know, just allowing some space to kind of start with you know, exploring some of these emotions. Would anyone else like to share?
Yeah, so I'm Ellen, and I'm going to piggyback on this real dichotomy in emotions. I live in Colorado, so that's why I was eating lunch after trying to run errands. And I was a geologist in oil and gas, and I lost my job at the end of April. But I've oddly felt a huge sense of relief because I didn't like my job. I'd been job searching for 2 years. So I really took it, and I was trying to work for a month with a 4-year-old in my lap, alone in my house with nobody else. And it was so overwhelming and so stressful. And I could see the projection of the company. So it was like, I have to prove my worth. Like, so I had all this added stress on top of, oh, I'm working at my kitchen table in my daycare clothes. Like, oh, and I don't like my job, and it's being enforced now that I'm not going to an office. So I've felt this huge sense of relief, actually, which has been really nice for me to embrace as I'm now home with my kid all day long, and I'm getting to garden and like watch him play with our neighbor. And but then on the opposite end of that is I find that as I'm like joining in on a lot of these webinars and doing a lot of soul searching, because I'm fairly certain I'm leaving oil and gas because the prospects don't look great for me right now. I'm having a lot of this, I guess it would go under what you were saying is like kind of sad and scared, right? Like my career history has been in oil and gas. Like I have an advanced degree in geology that I got focused on petroleum. And so I'm like identifying that I'm lacking some confidence that I'm going to be employable somewhere else, even though like I'm sitting in this really weird space these days because one part of me is like, oh, you're totally competent and capable. And then the other part's like, well, then why aren't you applying to jobs? Like, why aren't you taking the action? And in the last 48 hours, I've kind of recognized, oh, I'm actually really scared. And so I'm thinking like, well, if I just don't apply, I can't get that rejection, right? But it's like, but if you don't apply, you also can't get the job either. And at some point your severance package is going to run out. So I am having that real mixed, this morning I was going to apply to some jobs and instead I was feeling not great about it. And so I like went to the playground with my kid and my neighbor. And so it was like, and I find relief in that, but I'm like, but another part of me is like, well, you have to like, I miss being a professional. Like I'm not meant to be just a mom. Like I'm meant to do other things. So I'm having this, it's like so far on the ends of the spectrum for me. So.
Right.
What is interesting, Ellen?
Yeah.
Sorry. What is interesting, Ellen, about you is that you said on one side you had joy, but then all of a sudden on the other end of it, you said scared and what next, right? Rejection, feelings of that. So it's interesting that both sides, they're valid, right? Mm-hmm. Joy of leaving the position you didn't like, so there's less stress in a way, but then again, you have to figure out your way and what is the way forward? How are you going to attack that?
Ellen, I just wanted to tell you that the same thing happened to me, like in regards that I was very unhappy in my work and I got unemployed, and all of a sudden you realize that, like you want to do other things, but there's no other, like it looks like what to do and you start getting no options. And, like even in your profession, you see that there's no, there's 200, 500 people applying for the same job that you're doing, right? So it's really awkward, and for us, I mean, it's so difficult, and I don't know. I don't know. I just
May I make a comment? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As I said, there's something else that was said earlier. I can't remember what it was. I was trying to take notes, but so I also have a 13-year-old stepson. Oh, you're speaking about like how kids are going through this for the first time. And my stepson is already anxiety prone. And like twice now, he's thought that his mom's going to die. I mean, she just got diagnosed with a kidney infection, and he like literally walked up to me and like wrapped his arms around me and he was like, she's not going to die. And it's like, I'm like, I can't imagine being 13. Like, where was I in the summer between 7th and 8th grade? My concerns were not that my parents were going to die. And if I went to my friend's sleepover, would I then kill my mother? And like my 7-year-old niece is in a similar situation. So I think you had mentioned something on this, or I heard it at least, is that like this, be a little gentle on myself. Like, it's okay that I'm not like jumping back into something because I don't actually know what childcare is going to look like for my 4-year-old and how he'll process that. So like, maybe this needs to be a summer where we're home and I don't understand why, but that's just the way that it's going to be. And like that it will actually all be okay at the end, because my 7-year-old niece, she took her temperature 4 times yesterday because she was terrified she was going to get her pregnant mother sick. Like, and so it's like, as an adult, I have a very different perspective of what the world is doing versus kids.
Right. And I that's a great point. I think it underscores the importance of talking to kids about this.
Yeah.
And connecting with them around this, because they have feelings too, and sometimes they may not want to share it because they don't want to. So often I see people come in and say they don't want to burden other people with their feelings or their emotions.
Adam, can you do a favor, please?
Sure.
And hand over your guitar to Yanti. Maybe she can play a little bit classic guitar. It's right behind you.
Right, yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next piece, and this is kind of in keeping with that feeling piece, is kind of, I want you to think about, what do you need at this time? I often pose this question to people as a way to open up communication between partners. So telling your partner, do I need support? Or do I need problem solving? Do I need to just be in this space where I can feel this emotion and let it kind of go through me, let it kind of pass through me? Or do I need to talk to someone and seek out some consolation? Or do I need to look for kind of problem solving? Am I feeling scared because that's motivating me to kind of do something and, start maybe applying for jobs or updating my resume, meeting with a coach, whatever it may be. But kind of, what do you need? Does this come up for anyone as far as an answer, as far as what do I need at this time?
Yeah, we need this election to be over. Maybe we can get back to life in a more normal situation.
Right. It's going to be this kind of weird triple whammy kind of thing.
I think that's a big problem with our industry, is that nobody knows what to do because they don't know the price of oil. They don't know where it's going. No one knows none of the companies and the people I've talked to know where they're headed. And I think they're all waiting until that's over before they move forward with anything. And I'm kind of on the other side of the last two. I'm just angry and mad that it happened. I never, ever anticipated my career being derailed by a virus. I mean,
Right.
You think of everything else, but you don't think of that. And I was in a position where I was thoroughly enjoying a new position I had started just last November. And it was probably my favorite job I've had of all time. And then this happens. And so I'm angry that it happened that way, and I wanted to stay there, but I think I'm handling it all right. I'm keeping myself busy, but it's just one of those things that I can't even watch the news anymore because I know it's just a game going on, and I hear from my friends that are still in the business that no, nothing's going to happen this year. We have to wait till the election's over.
And that's a great point, Paul. That unfortunately there are kind of larger forces at work here.
Right. And I think we're caught in it right now.
Right. And it kind of going back to that collective grief piece is that, yes, this pandemic is going on and it's causing us a great deal of grief, but also those of you that have lost your jobs, that is a significant traumatic event in your lives. And Paul, like you alluded to, saying that, I really liked my job and now it's gone.
Exactly.
That can be very painful.
And it also seems I try to spend a couple hours at least every day looking at the internet for jobs and posting and applying. But the other part of that is it seems like in this new world of applying, you never even hear back any longer, even from a computer saying, well, thank you for posting, or applying for this job, but you don't hear a thing. And it bothers me that I did apply to one today that I did get that computer response, but I've probably applied to 20 and got nothing. And it's discouraging in the sense that, well, is this a real job? Is there really something out there? Will I ever hear from it? It's kind of a very odd situation because I don't really come from this generation of computer people. I'm a little older and more used to the old method of talking to somebody about it or, calling somebody or doing something along those lines.
Thank you for sharing, Paul.
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next piece. So that was kind of the feel piece. The next piece is kind of, again, the thinking or the cognition. So what are the content of my thoughts right now? Do I notice that my thoughts are very pessimistic? Do I notice that my thoughts are, oftentimes kind of nihilistic? Do I think that things are going to get better? I have a challenging job, I think, as a therapist because people look to me to maybe sometimes kind of hold the space of hope and optimism. I'm not sure I can do that all the time right now. Again, I'm angry. It breaks my heart to see this kind of happen to my country. And I want to say, yes, we can get through this, but I don't know. And, it would be disingenuous if I were to say, yes, everything's going to be okay. Does anyone else have some thoughts around this question?
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry. Yeah, I was gonna say that I force myself to think good things, and it's not easy, but I I force myself. I'm always doing that, although I today, like I was bombarded with all this news, and at the same time, you see, we're gonna get out. This is gonna pass. So, and I force myself always to think good things. I think good things about myself. I think good things about my life.
Hmm.
I think good things that lots of things I've done, and I wish well for other people. I pray for other people. So those things that I've been doing around this your contents of my thoughts.
Right. Do you find that you've kind of leaned into that a little more since this started, Angelina?
Uh, I've never been like that, honestly. So it's really an exercise. It's a
Okay.
forcing exercise that I've been doing, and it's not. I'm telling you, it's not easy.
Right.
It is not easy, but I've been doing like constantly, like every time, like things trying to escape, and I go like, no, we're gonna be we're gonna be well. Everything's gonna be fine. Like
Hmm.
no matter what, I've been very sick.
That's why I quit watching the news, because there's too much negativity on it. It's not
Yeah, but
just the virus.
yeah, but it doesn't, like it doesn't help. You gotta know. For me, it's still I listen to that, and I try to understand. I try to put my interpretation of things, and although it doesn't help at all, but this is just my interpretation, and I try to always be positive, and try not to fight. I try not to fight. I try to see good in everything.
And I
That's
think I think it really brings up a great point of, kind of what are we consuming and how is it helping? Is it helping or kind of hurting our thoughts? I talk to people around social media use, and that for me, I have found in the last few months, social media has been totally unhelpful, and I have really cut back on the amount of information I consume that way. You all may be somewhat different or kind of the same.
No, I agree 100%. It's too
Emily,
much.
you want to share your thoughts?
I think
Oh, there we go.
oh,
So I was job hunting less than a year ago, and this compared to before actually has been more helpful because so many of the industry professionals are providing more resources and help and how to navigate LinkedIn and do resumes and stuff. But at the same time, it's like I was just job hunting a year ago. So it's difficult, and like, did I do something wrong? And even my boss said, he's like, if it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have let you go. He had no choice. They let go half of my group, including people that had been there since the company had been integrated into the other company. So, I mean, it's just frustrating. And then, I have all the stuff with kids too, like the previous person was saying. So it's just frustrating.
Yeah. Thank you, Emily. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
So the next question, along with this kind of thinking piece, is what is the story I am telling myself about this moment in time? Kind of what do I want to kind of be my legacy from this? Do I want to be one of perseverance? Did I kind of rise to meet the challenge? What do you kind of tell yourself about your future and kind of who you are? Because certainly dealing our jobs, for a lot of people, our jobs are our identity, and if I'm not doing this job, I'm not in this field, especially if I loved it. What does that say about me? What does that mean about me? Emily, I think, kind of in keeping with your question, or your experience, I love this thing. I love doing this thing, and now I can't do it. What am I going to do, going forward?
I had my dream job. I got to look at pretty rocks all day. That was my dream job. Granted, it was under microscopes at, 1,000 times images, but I had my dream job. And that's been the worst part of it, is like, I finally found my niche in the industry, and, which I do lab work. And that was the worst part of it. It's like, I finally found a job that I loved, and it's just gone.
Emily, what did you do, if I may ask?
I did SEM work for Halliburton. I looked at the images and determined what was poor, what was gas or oil, and what was organic material in clays and unconventionals.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I mean, that it's a few and far between, and it's a very small niche. And I had done SEM work for my thesis, and that's how I came about it. So,
Emily, I saw 2 job postings today for NASA looking for people that have lab work and
those are
microscope work.
very hard to get. I'm going to try again, but those are very hard to get. I've
Okay.
applied for those before.
There you
Hi,
go.
Emily, Jacobs Engineering, please, because they have some good connections with NASA. They're actually, we had a announcement that Jacob is actually, they had a job fair, as a matter of fact, not too long ago. So check out their website, please.
I will. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
And Adam, in terms of what am I telling myself, I can give a little historical perspective. And I was in the downturn in '86, and the same sort of thing happened when tons and tons of people lost their jobs, and it did come back, and I do believe it'll come back again. As I said, it's just going to take probably till the first quarter next year is what I'm thinking, based on what I've been reading and hearing from people. And a good reason to believe that is there's a very good documentary. If you were on the AAPG lunchtime call last week with Dr. Scott Tinker, he's an excellent speaker who gives a broad overview of the energy industry in total. And, his charts and graphs all point to the rising need of energy across the entire world, and that he was bringing into it. I think it's available online as a replay if you're interested, or go to switch.com. I think it is. I have it up still here. It's, switchon.org. But it's an excellent overview of why energy is needed so good and why it will come back. And I believe it will. The same thing happened in '86, but patience is what's needed.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Okay. Moving along, the last piece again is kind of that act piece. So we have the feel, the think, and now the act. So at this time, the question is, where can I best focus my attention, time, and energy at this time? And Paul, I think I'll kind of use you as an example. If you kind of have the belief that this is part of the boom and bust of my industry, then I'm seeing these are kind of where the trends are going. What can I do to put myself in a position where I may be able to take advantage of that and my experience and come into, one of these jobs, maybe with kind of at the front.
Sure. Yeah, I've actually watched a lot of the documentaries on his channel to learn more about other energy industries like solar and wind and biofuels and so forth, just to see where it fits. And also looked at quite a few positions that I might be able to transition to that are in environmental or governmental type jobs. And at the same time, doing a lot of LinkedIn learning, which I've found helps quite a bit. Presentation skills, oral communication stuff, I think I needed help there. So I've been working on those kinds of things to find alternatives and to better myself in the meantime, plus hobbies and so forth to take up time.
Right. Yeah, and that brings up a great point. Maybe a lot of us right now can reconnect. I think, like you shared, Angelina, reconnecting with parts of ourselves. Maybe it's worth focusing my attention, time, and energy on, learning to get better at guitar. Music. I think this pandemic has taught me how important music is. And then I cannot wait for it to kind of come back in a live fashion. Anyone else like to share?
one thing I would like to share is that this is a good time to think about yourself, because we always put ourselves and we associate with the job, the title that we have. And this is a great time to think about yourself. And who are you? What do you represent? What are your competencies? What are your skills? So brand yourself so that if you're thinking about moving away from oil and gas, that brand can help you to make the transition. I already shared some examples with you in the beginning of the seminar, that how people do that. And this is a good time to think about it. And otherwise, we always associate with the last job we did, whether we liked it or we didn't like it. So that's something. And like I think Emily, you said that take advantage of, if your company offers the outside career transition services, take advantage of the full, because sometimes they offer you some new skills, LinkedIn Learning, through the LinkedIn Learning and other opportunities. So that's a good way to do it.
Great.
There's tons of YouTube videos over like Python and stuff like that too.
Yes.
And you know, some of the things that they ask for, like SAP and Python, and some of the things that apparently are easier than you think they are, that, you know, you can kind of learn that even if it's like an elementary level to kind of get in there.
Great. And the last question, in kind of keeping with this ACT piece, is if you've thought of kind of something came up for you maybe with the previous question, then this question is really kind of about that motivation piece. So what's one thing I can do in the next 24 hours that will move me toward that? Often I'll use the analogy with folks of like a board game, and that you know, will kind of work toward what the outcome is that they hope to achieve. And then I ask them, okay, if you were to take that first step on the board into that first square, what would that look like? What would it look like to take that step in the next 24 hours, in the next week? So really get clear about kind of your destination, and also what the individual kind of steps look like along that way. Would anyone like to share kind of their response to maybe this question?
This is Ellen. This is where I struggle. Like, this is my most challenging, and I don't have a good reason why, but I probably have a dozen different small action items that I could do for the next 24 hours. And I just, like, they just don't get done. And I don't know if it's that I put too much on like a list of actionable items, or like that's what I use as my excuse, at least, is like, oh, I have too much and there's too much and I just can't get it all done in one day. Or if I'm lacking motivation, or if there's some like fear that's stopping me. But like this, like that right there is where I get hung up, and it's like, oh, well, then it's tomorrow and I didn't do it, and I'm on to the next. So
Ellen, I kind of had a thought as you're talking about this. Maybe you could, you know, develop that list and then hand it to the 13-year-old and then say, hey, pick one.
That's a good one.
You have to start on that one. Right.
I have the same problem, Alan, than you. I have like totally copycat from you, but it's true. And I think that my main problem is I cannot prioritize, you know. I end up like, at the end of the day, I say, what did I do? I didn't do anything, you know. So
I have a suggestion for you. You have your list in front of you, you close your eyes and say, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, but then I got distracted, and also there is also the neglecting, you know. You always end up postponing, you know, and it is not easy. When you don't have like absolutely pressure, because I'm the type of person who works like this, I have to do something and finish. So it's hard. So you have to to focus and say, I'm gonna do this and finish.
Right.
So if you guys like, you can contact me and I'll help you with coaching.
All right,
Get
Kelly.
the process, okay?
I actually met with a coach and then I couldn't do the one task that I think what dawned on me when Angelina was sharing is I think I also like overcomplicate it. So I've actually in the last 2 months I do feel like I'm accomplishing things and but like I've made as an adult huge strides in my like perfectionism, which is like a total side tangent, but like I can really overcomplicate it of like, oh, well, if I don't research how to write the cover letter, how can I possibly write the cover letter? And if I don't have an updated LinkedIn profile for this other career, how could I possibly even know what, like apply for a job? And then if I can't apply for a job, like how do I even know what to search for? Like I just like blow it up into this huge thing in my head rather than like, okay, I'm okay today because I like tagged 4 different jobs that I thought sounded interesting. So I have definitely made strides. But when Angelina was speaking, I was like, oh yeah, I definitely do that. Oh, well, I can't do that because of this and that and this and that and this and that. And it's like, just do something, even if it's just email somebody back.
I agree.
And so, and Angelina, I found that at the beginning of the pandemic, I was writing down in my planner, which would have been filled with like work meetings and stuff. I was writing down what I did, even if it was I made a fancy dinner like that took 2 hours. Like I wrote those things down, or I did a 4-hour hike, or like if I did something that felt like a big chunk of my day, I was writing it down, even if it wasn't and I now write down all the webinars I attend because they don't.
Because it gives you a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Right. And that's important. It's important to feel like we're getting some wins.
Adam, we have 2 minutes left, so can we work towards wrapping?
Yeah. So, with that, I encourage you all, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. If it's if it can be out there and it's good, then that's better than this perfect thing kind of in our heads. So that's really kind of the end of my presentation there. Again, if you do need to contact me, you can reach out to me through my website. You can call or text. You can also find me on Facebook and things like that. Are there any other kind of questions before we all part ways?
Thank you.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Jason Flom and Sumaya Ahmed, and of course, Adam Nowicki. Thank you so very much for this is very penetrating presentation that we had, and we are really thankful to you for being available for this opportunity. So again, thank you very much, Adam.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your experiences.
And thank you all very much for participating, and get the word out about this group here so we can more people benefit.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Can you stick around, Adam, a little bit?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, Sumia, are you there? Sumia? So,
yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Hey, thank you very much again for sticking up and stick around. So, Adam, this was very, very fantastic presentation. And if you're open, for future opportunities like this one here, and I hope that people will contact you after this one here. I thought it was really meaningful, and when we had our first meeting of the G&G group, I said we need to think about it and mental health, which we bypass. We always think about jobs, connected, networking, that's it. And this was a very powerful presentation, to be honest with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that, and for I'm always here to preach the good news of mental health. So thank you.
So maybe I'll thank you again.
I think it's funny because, oh, sorry. So for us, like talking about mental health, especially in the science community and the engineering community, is very almost like non-existent. And so I was really worried about how this was going to go, because I think it's the first time we, in any of the professional societies I'm part of, we've done something like this. And so it went really well. And thank you to you. And hopefully I'm going to talk to see if I can get feedback from the participants, and start reaching out to a little bit more of the organizations and see if we can get engaged more of these kind of topics. I don't know why no one really talks about it, but it's really it was something like I mentioned to you earlier. I had people talking to me personally about all this stuff, but I'm not like an expert. So,
sure.
And so it was kind of nice to hear that other people are feeling the same things.
Sure.
And so, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard to get people who are technical in nature to like talk about that kind of stuff, but you did an excellent job.
And thank you very much for saying that. I also recognize that it's challenging to do that over Zoom as well. Having done kind of in-person groups and Zoom groups, I certainly like the appeal of kind of in-person, kind of reacting in real time.
Yeah. I think the timing was great. The presentation was very timely. Then the break, and then of course right after that, I think that the whole format was just conducive to interactive conversation. So when people leave, they're not like just listening to the presentation only and then leave, but they are leaving with lots of I'm pretty sure that they internalize it in their comments and discussion. So it was very good format. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yes. Well, thank you to both of you, and very nice to meet both of you. And I wish you well. If we don't speak again, then I wish you well in your journey.
I'm on LinkedIn, and so just stay in contact. I want to talk to the other organizations and see what they think of that, and then I don't know how long this pandemic's gonna go, but just stay in contact. It's always good to be connected, because you never know when zombies may attack or whatever.
Right, you're right. And you need to hole up in Colorado.
I think that's the problem. You chose Houston.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Adam.
See you soon.
All right. Well, take care of yourselves.
Take care.
Okay.
Enjoy the
Bye.
beautiful weather in Colorado.
I will.
You see, that's what I'm going to go to the beach now.
Yeah, enjoy the beautiful weather and the beach there.
Yes, right.
All right. Bye, y'all.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah. Hey, Sumaya.